Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. You've probably been in a situation where you've needed some kind of tech support. I know I have. And that tech support may be delivered by way of a phone call or potentially an online chat. There always seems to be some kind of breakdown in communication when you're interacting with someone who doesn't speak English as their native tongue. Now, this isn't to say that these people are bad people, but it is likely indicative that the company that you're dealing with either has outsourced their tech support offshore, or that's where the company exists, offshore at least from the United States, or those of us who do speak English as our native tongue. And that isn't to say that if you have a thick accent with English, that means that you understand less. You don't. We've written an article, and hopefully I'm tiptoeing around sensibilities the best I possibly can, and hopefully I'm not offending anybody. Just please hear me out with this, because it isn't about one person being better than another. I think we've got a good story to tell in the article. Support, and specifically why support call centers should return to the U.S. I'm looking at it right now here on lockergnome.com. I'm going to go ahead and +1 it, tweet it, like it on Facebook there. Easy to do in the sidebar. Ron, one of our contributors, had an issue getting frustrated with someone he was communicating with. He had a tech support problem, and he was like beating his head up against the desk because he was so frustrated. They are both using the same language, English, but there was a breakdown in communication. So if the technology support is outsourced, its jobs are going elsewhere. I think, generally speaking, for the American economy, that's a problem. I think that we could, as an American economy, stand to have call centers here in the U.S., and they can be just as affordable. Granted, the cost of living in the U.S. is a lot more than it is in some other countries. But let's just say, for argument's sake, because you may argue, well, it's because they don't speak English natively. Well, what if a call center was here in the U.S. and they hired people who also happen to not speak English natively? They may do a better job, not because they're not speaking English natively, but because they may understand the culture better. And I think that is where the true breakdown happens. Not just because it's not just because you don't speak English as your native tongue, because I know a lot of people on this channel aren't native English speakers, and they can still communicate with me. And I didn't quite understand that in the beginning when I was doing this, because I just assumed everyone's like me. No, they're not. There are kids, I mean genuine kids in Germany who understand German fluent, that's their native tongue, but they can speak English just as well and write it, and we can communicate back and forth. But they understand culturally at a different level. They understand technology and the technology culture. And when you are trying to communicate a concept to somebody else, even if you're using the same language, it may fly right over their head. This is why when you talk to people who don't understand anything about geekery or technology, they're not going to get it. And they may speak the same language. It has nothing to do with the language that you're speaking. It has to do with a fundamental understanding of the problem and how to communicate that problem effectively using whatever language. If you do not have a cultural understanding of what the universe that you're dealing with entails, if you don't have a cultural understanding of this particular product and the service around it and the people who use it, it's going to be very difficult to field answers because you don't understand it. That's the breakdown. It has nothing to do with language. It has to do with product, service, culture, and wrapped up in this ball of understanding. So either people need to be better trained before they enter a call center, whether the call center is local, stateside, or it's offshore. Even if they do not speak English as their native tongue, if they have an understanding of the product or service, if they have an understanding of the culture that might be using the product or service, I think everybody would be much better served. You know what? Because like I said, I swear to God, I'm not Americentric. I'm not. I believe we need to exist in a global economy. I do. And that's good. It's good for stability. It really is. For global stability, the thing you want to be is interoperating, because then if one piece falls, they all fall. And you don't want that. We can build each other up. But when people complain about non-native speakers of a language, I think it's less about the language being spoken and more about a colossal misunderstanding of the culture in which a product or service is being communicated through. I think it's more on that side. And hopefully you understand. That didn't sound very eloquent, but hopefully I got my point across to everybody. I'm hoping that beyond the jobs and people getting paid for what they do, I would hope that the value of training is something that call centers could begin to focus on, not just communicating. I don't care if you speak English if you can't help me with my problem. And you could be my next door neighbor. If you can't help me with my problem, I don't care. I need help with a problem. And it just seems to me a cultural understanding and a better understanding of the product or service would serve everybody fantastically better, no matter where you live and no matter what language you speak. Hopefully that wasn't a rude gesture in some countries, but it may be. I don't know.